been asked by the family to give a really long, boring salvation talk at the end. Because I can do boring. All right? You're not laughing. At this church, we call my messages on Sundays LBTs. Because I was in a renewal group years ago, and I'm still actually in. It's Nation International. It's called Tres Dias. 3 days is a Spanish thing. And in the Spanish thing that we do, it's 4 days long, hence the 3 days, 4 days long. And then at the end of the fourth day, we do this talk called the launching talk. But up till that, there's 15 sermons from Thursday night to Sunday night, scattered through the whole 4-day weekend. And those sermons are called rollos. That's a Spanish word. In Spanish, rollo means long, boring talk. LBTs. So I'll be doing an LBT at the end of this exciting discussion of Jeremy, all right? But I'll warn you, I'll try to make it, well, maybe a little less boring. But, are we ready? Are we ready on Facebook? We're ready. So if you'd like this talk, have a few of you come up here, and then when you notice there's a few empty spaces over here on the pew, then feel free to come on up and sit over here so you're ready to go when the other person is done. All right? I'm going to sit over here too because I just have one thing to share about Jeremy, and then I'll get out of the way. All right. You have something to say? Yeah. I thought they were all talkers. All right, so when you got a couple empty spaces up here, we'd like you to come on up and have a seat, all right? Yes, it's a good point. In fact, when you're ready to say something, feel free to come up at the pulpit, the lectern, this little stand here, or up here behind the mic, and we'll give you the mic, or wherever you feel comfortable is all that matters, all right? And then, if you'd like to say what you'd like to say from where you're at, we'll bring you the mic out there too. All right, got that? Okay. You want to go first, or you want one of them to? It's your call. I don't want to put you under pressure. All right.
Don't mind the Diet Pepsi, guys.
Diet Pepsi is what God drinks.
That's right. So, hi everybody. Bear with me. This is hard to do. I can't even believe we're here doing this. But I'm Megan McCormick. I'm Jeremy's fiance. And I just want to thank you all so much for being here today. I'd like to acknowledge the church, Pastor Jim and Pastor Jimmy, for having us here today, and all of the support the church has provided. I would like to thank the group for being such an important part of Jeremy's life, for coming out today to honor him in his memory, and for covering dinner. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge Jeremy's family. We have his aunt and cousin in the front, and his grandfather, Pap. And if you know Jeremy, you know Pap. Everybody has heard of Pap. And I would also like to acknowledge Jeremy's brother and sister-in-law who are joining us, Casey and Allie, from Facebook Live in California. So I'll just start by telling you something a little funny, but there were 3 things I recognized immediately when I was with Jeremy. A, I had my own personal security. B, nobody dared looked at me wrong with Jeremy around. And C, even though I'm a thicker girl, I felt small next to him. I felt like I was a size 2, because you have this big guy. And everybody called Jeremy, like a friend of mine actually called him a mountain of a man. And he was just such a big, strong man. I did want to note that Jeremy's urn is up here. And somebody who came to the funeral left their coin. I believe it was either a 6 or a 4-year coin. And I just wanted to thank you for that, because I know what you guys go through to earn those coins and how important they are to you. And so I just wanted, nobody has to tell me, but I wanted to let you know that that has been included with Jeremy's ashes forever. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So Jeremy's life is impossible to sum up in one little speech. He had a rough life growing up. He did not have it easy. The best thing that ever happened to him was finding this group. And he said the best things that ever happened to him were me and the group, but he put his sobriety over me, and that's okay. I wanted that, because there would be no us without his sobriety, right? So he became sober 5.5 years ago and maintained that until his death, and that was so important to him, and I'm very proud of him. The hard thing to understand about life sometimes is, Jeremy he just needed a break in life, and he finally had good things going for him. He had the group, he had his sobriety, he got a good job that he was happy with. We were engaged and planning a wedding. We got a decent house together, a large house, and these were things that Jeremy had never had. And it's so hard to understand sometimes why, somebody like Jeremy is taken away in his prime. He suffered a lot through his cancer. It was awful to go through and see how bad he suffered, but he fought valiantly. He used to say he was fighting for me and for us, and he fought until the end. So those of you who know me, I see a few guys in the house that recognize me. When Jeremy and I met, we instantly became inseparable, and we didn't want to be apart. And I'm from the Pittsburgh area near Monroeville, and so he would come out and stay with me a few days a week, and I would go out and stay with him when Louise had his house on South Pennsylvania, and I called it the sober frat house. Because it was like a bunch of guys. There were just guys everywhere. Like, I've never seen so many guys in one house, and then there's me in my little dresses and, all this. But everyone was so welcoming to me. And, so Jeremy and I shared a little room in there, and it was a great experience to learn more about your world. So Jeremy appreciated, and I loved this about him, the little things in life. When we met, he had only stayed at a hotel once. He'd never been on a vacation. He'd never been on a picnic. I said, I've never heard of such a thing in my life. Like, everybody's been on a picnic, And so I tried to take him and do things. We went to Charleston, South Carolina. We stayed in a 4-star hotel in Pittsburgh. I took him to a really fancy dinner in Charleston, and he hated it because it was like really uncomfortable for him. But he would get these big eyes, and he would open them real big when he was excited. And usually it was around a good meal. And so one time we went to Cracker Barrel, and he figured out that you get like 4 sides at Cracker Barrel. And this was like a dream come true to him. Plus, I would always give him like one of my sides. So he would get these eyes like this. So I called him his Cracker Barrel eyes. So when he was excited, if you brought him a good meal, he would get these big eyes. And unfortunately, I'm a horrible cook, so that didn't happen very often. But Jeremy recently, right before he got sick, went to Olive Garden with some of the guys. Now, I'm sure most of you have been to Olive Garden, right? Most people have been to Olive Garden. I guess Jeremy had never been to Olive Garden, because he came home and said to me, "You are not going to believe this." And I said, "What, honey?" And he said, "You get all the salad and breadsticks you want. I mean, all the salad and breadsticks you want at Olive Garden. And he like couldn't believe this. And I'm thinking, you've never been to Olive Garden? Everybody knows you get all the salad and breadsticks, right? I mean, I prefer the soup, but you know, everybody knows that. So he appreciated little things. The group and sobriety meant everything to him. He mentored and took in many guys on his couch when he had his apartment, and he highly respected members of his group, especially Brian. Not to say he didn't highly respect you all, but he used to, at one point we were sharing a vehicle, and he used to basically like say to me, even though it was my vehicle, like I would want to come to Uniontown from Connellsville to meetings and drop him off so I, like any girl, could go shopping in, you know, Uniontown, right? No. He said, no way. I am not having my guys see me pull up with you dropping me off like you're my mother and I'm in 5th grade. So I wasn't allowed to take my own car to go to Uniontown. But Jeremy, you know, he had to maintain his rep in front of the guys. Jeremy loved his family. He adored his pap, who raised him from the time he was 2. When Jeremy really had no one, Pap stood by his side. He adored his aunts and uncles and cousins. He didn't get to see everybody as much as he would like, but he was especially close with his brother, Casey in California, and his wife, Allie. Jeremy had a cat named Cuddles, and I call her Cuddles P since everybody in the group has their first name and their last initial, so she's Cuddles P. And he used to say, I hate that, insert word here, cat. And I said, you love that cat. What are you talking about? You talk to her like she's a baby, like he would like hide and do it. He didn't want everybody to see a baby talking to the cat. So finally the one day he said, I love that, insert word here, cat. I can't say the word. And so Cuddles P was an important part of his life. Okay, I'm getting there, guys. Sorry, I'm almost done. But I love Jeremy with all of my heart. I was 40 years old, and I waited my whole life to find someone who I knew truly loved me unconditionally, no matter what, and that would stand by my side no matter what. And I have no doubt that if Jeremy were still here, we would be together forever. And that's what's hard, is losing that and losing him. He was my soulmate, and he saved my life when I met him when I was at my lowest. I'm still in shock. I'm sure a lot of you are. We just got the cancer diagnosis not even 4 months ago, and now he's gone. It's taking a while to even sink in. One thing that was important to Jeremy was this church and his church family here and his faith. And when Jeremy was almost completely paralyzed, he decided to accept Christ as his Savior. And he got down on both knees before God, could barely move, but got down on his knees and prayed before God and asked him to save him. So as a Christian, I have no doubt where Jeremy is today, and that's my only comfort. I pray that when I get there someday that he meets me at the gate. So Jeremy, I love you, and I will always love you. I miss you so much already, and I'm trying to be brave for you. I'll do my best to live each day for you. One thing we should think about, and what I thought about, is when we have days where we're just like, you know, this is a rough day at work, or a rough thing in my life, you know, I'm gonna live for Jeremy because he didn't get these days. You know, we're all blessed right now to be here, and Jeremy doesn't have that opportunity. So I think Jeremy would want everybody to live their life to the fullest and think of him, you know, when they're having a rough day, and just go out there and live. So I thank you all.
Hello, I'm Sue McCormick. I'm Megan's mother, and one of the family members was going to be here to read Casey and Allie's letter, but since they're not, you get me. And I just have to say, I've never met Casey and Allie, but just through this whole process, I've really grown to love them, and I know how much Jeremy meant to them. And it is just heart-wrenching to lose someone so young. And I just want you to know, Casey and Allie, that my prayers are with you, and I'm sure everybody else will be praying for you as well. We find the letters here. Okay. This one, first one, is from Casey. And he said, "Thank you for being my brother. I will miss you every day. You had my back no matter what. I will never forget playing Need for Speed and rocking to Ozzy with you. Those were some of the best days of my life." I'm sorry, this is really little. "Just being with you, little brother. I love doing things with you, like taking you to a fabulous concert or going to the museum in Pittsburgh. I can't believe you're gone. You were doing so awesome at living your life. Nobody would have ever thought you would make it 5 years sober. You did a great job, and that took a lot of hard work. I was so proud of you. You got your own car, house, job, girlfriend. Everything was finally going great for you. You went too soon. There is so much more to say I can't put into words. I love you so much. Your brother, Casey." And this one is from Allie, his sister-in-law. "Jeremy was my brother-in-law, and I knew from since he was a teenager and saw him go through so many seasons in his life. He was always ready to go on an adventure with us. We went to Pittsburgh and West Virginia, the San Diego Zoo, and Hollywood. He grew up in a small town, a patch called Rose Run, and he hadn't gotten out much. Everything was new and exciting beyond the county line. I was so thankful when our prayers were answered and his life was transformed by God through the Uniontown Recovery Fellowship Group. He was given a great gift, freedom from the bondage of addiction. It was truly awesome to see how God was working in and through him during the best life living sober in a relationship with God. I remember how happy Jeremy was to be able to buy a ham to share with the men in his program for Christmas, to give back and encourage those around him. I couldn't have been more proud of Jeremy. He pressed on against every obstacle he had in life and was an inspiration to many around him. The greatest lesson I learned from Jeremy was that you are not too far gone for God. You can be saved, even if you don't think you can. Through the mercy and grace of Jesus Christ, the love of Jesus is relentless. It never fails. God can do the impossible. There was seldom a dull moment with Jeremy around. He was sarcastic and witty and could really tell a story. He was one of a kind and will be remembered and loved forever. Love you, brother, Allie.
Brian. I'm Jeremy's sponsor in AA and NA, and I didn't really prepare anything today. I spoke a little bit at his funeral, so bear with me. But I think Megan said it earlier. Jeremy's recovery was near and dear to his heart. It was probably the most important thing to him, and he was worried about it up until the end. With the cancer that he had, it was pretty much impossible for him not to be medicated or have to take anything. And his biggest worry was, his clean date, which is those of us in the program knows, what we rest on. It's the most important date that we have, because it's the day we changed our lives and allowed God to step in and rescue us from hell. And I met Jeremy June 9th, 2016, and like I said in the eulogy the other day, to be honest, I was pretty new in the process myself. I only had about 10 months sober at the time, and they said, "You're going to sponsor this guy." And I walk in, and I saw him, and honestly, I just didn't have a lot of hope for him at first. He kind of looked a little rough. Had a red bandana. I think it was middle of summer. He's wearing a jean jacket. Looked like he just came from like a Motley Crue concert or something. And I just, he didn't have anything to his name. He was pretty much homeless. But he had this like shopping bag full of loose tobacco. And that's all, no cell phone, no wallet, just a bag of tobacco that he rolled his own cigarettes. So, needless to say, that was the first day of our relationship, and who would have thought, 5.5 years later, both of us would still be sober, and he would be facing something like this, which was obviously the biggest challenge. It really was a huge challenge for me too, because I didn't know how to deal with anything like this. But he fought it till the end, and he applied a lot of the principles that we learned in the program to his illness. Which is a lot of things are out of your control. Just have faith in God, and towards the end, he had almost said it seemed like he almost accepted his fate, and he knew he was in God's hands now, and he seemed like he was okay with it. And it was inspirational to me, because I couldn't understand how he was taking it so well. And but I know, through prayer and everything that we learn in recovery and church and everything, that he's with God right now. And the last conversation I had, and as sick as he was, his passing kind of, took everybody by surprise, because it was rather quick. But the last conversation I had was a good one, and we laughed a lot. And he thought he was gonna come back from this, and he was even asking me if I'd take him to a Penguin game, which I said I would. But it was just a real good conversation, and it's just an honor to be part of his life. And just a few things we went over. We were trying to take a meeting to him, because that's kind of what we do in recovery, is one recovering alcoholic addict helping another. So we were just trying to. He couldn't really walk, so we couldn't really get him to a meeting. His back was in pretty bad shape. So me and a couple guys from the fellowship took a meeting to him, but we didn't really even have like a normal meeting per se. We just kind of sat around and told stories, and he talked about wrestling. If anybody that knows him, he was like a wrestling historian. He knew way too much about WWF. But we kind of just sat around and told stories, and we watched like old boxing matches, and we just talked. And it was, it was a good memory, and it's kind of how, I'll remember him by, as well as a lot of other stories. His big thing was he loved to, what we call in the program, carry the message, which is, talk to newer recovering addicts about the path to recovery and how to, through our experience, how we changed our lives. And his big thing was he would stay up, he would keep these guys that were new into the program up all hours of the night, watch wrestling, and carried a message and just smoke cigarettes. A lot of these guys had to be at work at like 6 a.m. the next day, and he'd have them up till 2 a.m. watching wrestling and beating their ear about recovery. But the one thing, the people that did stay sober, they all kind of look back and, thanked them for that, for being able to do that for them, because it kind of stuck with them, and they can remember that in a positive way. But I'm gonna miss him. This is sad. He called me every day. Early on when he got diagnosed, and it was tough. It was some of the tougher calls I had to take, just because you feel helpless. But I feel good because I know he's in a better place. He's not suffering anymore, and like was already said, he loved recovery. He loved the people in his life. He cared a lot about everybody, and I'm sad that he's gone, but I can look back, with fond memories, because he helped me a lot too. And like I said, we met. I was pretty early on in my sobriety, and it's a two-way street. Even though I sponsored him, he helped me a lot. Getting through different things over a 5.5-year relationship. It's an intimate relationship, and you help each other. I leaned on him just as much as he leaned on me. So, kind of rambling, but I appreciate you asking me to speak again. I really wasn't. I didn't think I was going to have to today, but it's an honor, and appreciate the church putting on the luncheon and everything. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak? Please feel free to come forward and either use the mic or one of the lecterns or pulpits. Your call, your choice.
Okay, I'll use this. So, I've known Jeremy since 2018, so probably 5 years. Up to that point, all of my friends that I had, I always called them forced friends, as in like I either grew up around them or that I went to school with them, some of them not choosing. But I always say that Jeremy was my first friend that, as an adult, that I got to choose who was going to be my friend, and I chose Jeremy to be one of my best friends. It seems like from everything I hear, everyone has a story about when they first meet Jeremy. So going back to 2018, when I first met Jeremy, we play darts at this church. It's called Dart Ball. It's every Tuesday, and we play. There's other churches in the league. So anyway, we were playing at Calvary Methodist. So it's on Connellsville Street. So anyway, we're practicing. You get a few minutes before your game starts, and you're throwing darts. And next thing I know, I see this big guy. He comes in, and I'm like, "Whoa, man!" I was like, "Man, that's scary." On their team, I was like, "Man, this guy's gonna kill us." Well, come to find out that Jeremy was on our team. I don't know if it was Bill. Bill talked him and Tom into playing. So anyway, I'm looking at this guy. He has the big chain, the leather jacket or whatever, wearing a huge Godfather T-shirt. I'm like, oh wow, I mean, what a presence. So then I'll remember his first at bat, and he gets up, takes off his leather jacket, and he throws a home run. His very first at bat. I was like, yeah. I was like, I like this guy. So that's where it started. So the friendship continued to grow after that. We go on the road to different churches. I remember I feel like this is a real turning point for our relationship. Jeremy, as you knew, he was a straight shooter. Like, he just kind of told you how it was, and like, I really appreciate that, and I'm kind of like that too. So I think it's another reason why our relationship, why it grew, because he could just say things to me how it was, and I could say things to him how it was, and we had that mutual respect. So anyway, we're playing at Great Bethel, and I kind of knew him at that point a little bit. I knew his personality, so I heard him and Tom. They were over at the side, and they were just whatever, telling stories, and then I heard the Lord's name dropped, and so I was like, I'm going to teach Jeremy a little bit, and I said, Jeremy, what did you just say? And he looked at me, and he looked at me confused. I said, you just used the Lord's name in vain in a church. And then he looked up, he said, what did you say? You know, as he would. And I was like, we're in a church, man, you can't be saying that. And he looks at me, I look at him, and he goes, as he takes another drag of his vape or whatever. And anyway, I think from that moment on, he liked it because I would challenge him or whatever he said. He would say I challenged him. But no, the friendship would grow after that. I remember his vehicle problems, and I remember his car, I don't know, the brakes or something was out. He's like, hey Jimmy, could you give me a ride to Dartball this week? And I was like, yeah, I can give you a ride this week. Well, that week, it turned into a couple weeks, and then it turned into a couple months, and then eventually, once again, Jeremy's straight, he's a straight shooter. After a year of doing this, he was like, Jimmy, can you just drive me? This saves a lot on gas. So I said, yeah, of course. But we got to have some amazing conversations because of that. So anyway, the real reason why him and I bonded in the way that we did, there was two aspects to our relationship. One, we love movies. And anyone that knows Jeremy knows that he loves film, he loves cinema. If you ever went to his house, he had it proudly displayed. All of his movies, his Chucky doll, his $100 Michael Myers mask or whatever. He just had it proudly displayed. Classic horror movies is where we really hit it off, talking about the old actors and the old movies and the plots and what we appreciated about the director. I'm boring you to death right now, but Jeremy wouldn't be bored to death. Jeremy would appreciate it. So another thing that him and I bonded over, and it was alluded to by Brian, is our love for professional wrestling. Okay, and I don't need to say anything else. We are a rare breed. When we're adults and we're still watching professional wrestling, it's a rare breed. So people like my wife and people like Megan, I don't know how you do it, because it's like we can't shut that stuff off. It's always in our mind. So we would always talk about wrestling, and we'd always talk about movies. So that's why this week was like really hard for me personally, because you had you had Jeremy's funeral on Tuesday, and then we have this on Sunday. Tonight is the Oscars, and for Jeremy, we'd talk about the Oscar movies. We'd talk about who we think the best actress or actor is, and we would just go on and on about this. And then this week is WrestleMania again. He would call me up. It was nothing on a Sunday for him to call me and talk for over an hour just about what's going on in the wrestling business. So lots of reminders of him. Also this week, our dartball team we're playing. We get to go to the championship if we win this week, and it's at Calvary Methodist, the place where I met Jeremy. So lots of reminders. But right now, those reminders, they sting a little bit. But I know as time heals, hopefully those will be just very warm memories when I think back to the time I met Jeremy, or I think about the crazy conversations about the Oscars or professional wrestling. But yeah, this has been pretty hard for me. Not because of, I wish we would have did things differently in our relationship. I loved our relationship and everything about it. The things that's hurting me the most right now is the things that we'll never get to do, that we talked about doing together. One of them was, he told me after COVID, he wanted to, at the church, he wanted to start a movie club and watch movies and review them, talk about them. And that was something I was really excited for too with him. And I won't get to do that, so that hurts a little bit. Another thing is the youth group. He was dead set on coming to our youth group, and we were going to do a Scared Straight with Jeremy Price, have him come in, scar these kids a little bit, make sure they never make bad mistakes. So we still talk about him in youth group, but yeah, I'm sad we'll never get to do that. But my comfort, just like Megan alluded to, is knowing where his soul's at. There's a few times. First time, as I got to know him, we have something on Tuesday or Thursdays called Darts and Devotions, where we throw darts, and then we just do a Bible devotion or whatever. And one time he came. This was in his what's the restaurant beside Panera Bread he worked at? Ruby Tuesday. This was in his Ruby Tuesdays day, I believe, when he was working there. And so he came, and he wanted to stay and talk, and he was just asking a bunch of questions. Questions like, can people with tattoos go to heaven? Or his salvation, what does he have to do to achieve that? And, things like that. And we had amazing conversations like that. Also, I'll never forget, it was one time I was driving him to, it's close to the West Virginia line. There's a church there, we play darts. And on the way up, I'm driving there, and usually we just blast DVE or whatever rock music he wanted to listen to, and he said, Jimmy, on the way back, I have a favor. And I was like, I have a favor I need you to do for me. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what is this? It has to wait for the ride home? What on earth is this? So anyway, we play darts, and we're driving back to Uniontown, and this is when he lived by Sam's. And then he says, okay. And then he says, I want you to pray for my soul and my relationship with God. And he's like, can you do that? And I said, yeah, of course. So we prayed in the car outside of his apartment and just thanked God for where he was at in his journey. Prayed for his soul. And the things he would say, afterwards is like, can a guy with a demon tattoo go to heaven? And it was cool to be able to say, yeah, Jeremy, like, absolutely. So that's my greatest comfort. Then to hear what Megan said, him getting on his knees, there's no doubt that man's in heaven. So to wrap this all up, I know it's really hard right now because we're looking at Jeremy's life and we're saying, what a tragedy this is, and it absolutely is. But I know we can be thinking, what the heck? Jeremy was, just getting his life together. He got a good job. He was making money. He met the love of his life in Megan, moved into a beautiful home, and we're thinking he's gone. And for me, it's hard for me to swallow because it's like, man, God, he was just turning his life around. But then I think about the life that Jeremy lived. And I remember picking him up at his little tiny apartment on Morgantown Street. And then I remember him moving into the house on Pennsylvania by O.C. Cluss Lumber. And I remember that. It was like a little size. I was like, this is great. And then I remember when he got his house with Megan. And I was like, you know what? This man wasn't getting his life back together. For over 5.5 years, this man was living his life. He put the pieces back together of a life that was crumbled and shattered. And I feel so blessed that he felt safe enough to tell me those stories and that he could tell me about his journey. So for that, I am forever encouraged. And he's one of my best friends I ever had. So I don't